Hello. As you see, I have changed locations to work on the next part of my project. It occurs to me that I should maybe split this video, so I guess I'll do that. So for people who have come here to learn to make a DIY cupcake stand, I'm making cupcakes to bring to something tomorrow. I'm going to make a little stand for them, and there's a nice little thank you pop-up card that I made in part 1 of this little project. So, cupcake stand. I don't really have a complete plan. I have this cardboard box that's like from beer. I guess it's my dad's. I don't really like beer, but whatever. This would absolutely, I could have made this part maybe like 100 times easier on myself if I just bought a cake box for like $2 at AC Moore, but I didn't. So what I did do last night was I sort of made a kind of prototype out of some paper. The dimensions are probably not exactly to scale, like I didn't bother measuring the ratio of this beer bottle box or anything, but what I did do was I used 4 rectangles that are like about the same size, so I figure it applies. I can just do that. So here's the box, and it conveniently splits into 4 different rectangles, slightly different sizes, but that doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna start by doing that. So here's my thought process. These are going to be the shelves that my cupcakes sit on. I'm going to cut one of them a third off so that way I'll end up with 2 pieces. So I'll have a third piece, a 2/3 piece, and a whole piece. And this one I'm going to cut diagonally to become the 2 sort of triangles to be the sides. And the last piece will be the back. All right, I'm gonna show you my thought process. So the stand is gonna basically be like this, right? You've got your 2 sides here, got your shelves. So this is gonna be the bottom shelf. The shelf's gonna be somewhere in the middle. The shelf's gonna be even above that, right? And the other side is obviously gonna be up there, but I only have 2 hands. And then that other piece of cardboard is gonna be the back. It's just gonna go back here. Like that. So my goal is to make these sort of interlocking pieces so that I can carry them just flat like this and then assemble it when I get to the place and leave it there. Since it's cardboard, it'll be disposable and I can just leave it there when I leave and they'll still have them there. That's also part of why I wanted this to be a relatively simple design, besides the fact that I'm not some sort of architect and I can't like engineer super complicated designs. But I wanted this to be relatively simple and quick to make so that you can do them anytime you're going somewhere that you know, maybe you don't want to bring everything in a Tupperware because then you want to take your Tupperware back home with you at the end of the day, but you're going to leave and you're going to leave it there. So something that you can leave behind without guilt or without the pain of like, oh, I spent so long on that. So here's what we're going to do is we're going to cut strips out of these and then be able to sort of slide them together. And what I'm figuring for the slits, I'm not doing a whole terrible large amount of measuring. I'm not making this a very specific, like it has to be this size. I mean, clearly if you're using it for cupcakes the way I am, you probably want it to be at least big enough to hold cupcakes. I actually didn't think about that very much with this. I don't know how many cupcakes this is gonna end up holding, maybe not enough, but you know, this top one, because I just did it based on the size of the cardboard box I happen to have. But luckily, this top shelf does seem to be wide enough that I'll be able to put at least 1 cupcake on it. So basically, the way I'm going to do this is you take your bottom shelf and you take your side piece, all right, and sort of line it up. And for the bottom, I was thinking, you know, I don't want this to just be on the ground, so maybe I'll go in a little bit. I'll give it like a little sort of 1/2 inch off of the ground there. So I go in 1/2 inch, I mark sort of like 1/2 inch in, all right? And on this one, I measure halfway. You find the halfway point on the shelf. So you mark that here and on here. And then when you cut, you're gonna cut from this halfway point down to the end, down to this end. And from this one, you're gonna cut from the halfway point down to this end. So that they should, once cut, go in and lock together. I'm gonna go ahead and cut them now so we can see if it works. All right, and now we'll see if we slide these two interconnecting pieces in with each other. They should slide together just like that. We'll do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll have our first shelf. And now you can see we have our bottom shelf. So the next thing we're going to do is do the middle shelf. Now for the middle shelf, in terms of how high, I'm actually going to go based on the angle of my sides. And this is not really doing any precise measuring or anything, it's just based on the materials I have. This is at this angle because I literally took one of my rectangles and I cut it diagonally. So I didn't make this at a specific angle or anything. But what I'm gonna do, basically, is take this, and I noticed actually that this is a little bit shorter than this side is, but that's all right because we have to put it back in anyway at some point. So if I line this up, I lined this up so that the end would be here at the end, right? Something like that. So anyway, I'm going to take my shelf and I'm gonna say, okay, if this shelf is going here at the, if I want the base of it to be the same place where the end of the shelf is, assuming this is gonna be where my wall is, my back wall, you know, like that. And then I'm gonna slide this over this wall now for a second. But basically I slide it over until it hits, the edge hits here. I'm like, okay, this is where it's gonna go. About, because this is where the width is gonna match. Like so. Right? You don't want it to be like up here and hanging off the edge. You don't want it to be too far down and going in. Well, you can do that, actually. That would be fine. But I did it even. So just like before, you find where you want it to be, like this. And just like before, find the midpoint on here. And then you're going to, you know, go in however much you want. I did like 1/2 inch in. Make your mark for where you want your cut to be on this side. That same location, and cut, and then cut here and here, and we'll make a divot just like we did here, and then this shelf will be able to slide in here. And the same thing obviously on the other side. You slide over until you reach where it's matches in length, not too high, and halfway down the shelf you make your mark for your cut mark from this halfway mark down on one of them and this halfway mark down in the other direction on the other one. And there we have our middle shelf. you can just slide these together, just like the bottom. And there we have our metal shelf. And now, once again, and now we're going to do the exact same thing for our top shelf, right? So, find where you want the base to be, slide it over until it's reaching the things. Like I said, I'm leaving a little space back here, actually just because of this, but for where the backboard is going to go to. Maybe if you're doing this, don't be like me and do it this way. Do the back one first. I didn't. My bad. I might have to cut a little bit off the tops of these or something later. Or the backs, I guess. Make them shorter to fit. But anyway. So here's where the back is going to be. Slide over until it reaches the point you want it to be at. The height. So it's going to be up here. And find the halfway point of this width. All right. Make a mark. Make a corresponding mark on your side. So you're going to cut this part and this part. And on the other side, the exact same thing. You slide it over until you've reached the point where you want it to be. Not too high, going over, just right. Halfway point. Cut down here, cut up here. And behold the very top shelf of our little stand. So I'm going to go ahead and put these together for a second. And here we have our stand. Now I could probably leave it like this if I wanted actually, but I think I'm going to add up the back. So here we're seeing how the reason I'm doing this backing last is because I wasn't sure how high I would have to make it. Probably you do actually want to do the backing last when you do these things though. Not like me, because now I'm in a position where I'm looking at the back of this and I'm like, where does it go? I don't know. So my back piece of cardboard, you may have noticed, is not as tall as my little triangles are. I had left this little flap on this when I was cutting the cardboard off because I wasn't sure if I would need the extra space, and it turns out I think I do. So this doesn't look very pretty. But that's what I get for using a friggin' beer bottle box to make my stand. But it's alright because this is just a cheap disposable stand that I can make quickly and that can be left behind to be thrown in the trash. So I think what I'm gonna do probably is cut the tops of these triangles down where this meets. That'll be to make it neater in the end though. Right now I want to attach this. So let's think about where I want this to go. If you look at the back of the stand here, where do you want this to be? I'm going to do the same sort of concept that I did before, where I'm going to find the halfway point on here. All right, I'm going to cut a divot, and on these, I'm going to find the same point. I'm going to cut a divot up using the full length of this. The halfway point is about here. So I'm making a mark there. All right, and then I'm going to go in a certain amount. I guess I'll stick with my good old 1/2 inch. I'm going to cut this. All right, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So this is the halfway point. And on my sides, I'm going to take these shelves out actually. So these shelves are going to look like this. This is how these are going to go together, kind of like that. These will be standing up here. So I want to make the divots on these if I line my bases up, going from here at the halfway point where this divot starts and up this direction. Same on this side, right? Start from here and go up in this direction. And maybe, should I go in as far as on this one as I did with the others? Maybe I'll do a little less. So instead of half an inch in, maybe I'll, quarter inch is too small. I'll go in between a quarter and a half inch in for this. Just make it a little shallower. As I said, I'm going to trim off the tops of my triangles to be closer to the height of my backing piece. So, and I'm not even going to bother measuring this. I'm just going to move the backing piece over here and be like, oh, look, here's where it's going to cut. Just make a mark. Same on this one. Line up the bases. Right? And then make a mark right at the top. And there you have it, a little DIY shelf, completely recyclable and able to very easily be assembled and disassembled so that you can carry it flat. Just carry it around, set it up when you get to your event, and be all set. This is what my stand and card ended up looking like. I did notice that the top shelf, because it's so skinny, I think did sort of bow a little bit in the middle under the weight of the cupcakes, so I moved them to the sides. Luckily for me, I had made 2 different flavors of cupcakes. So I put a little index card that I had written down the ingredients on for in case anyone had allergies in the middle to kind of separate like, oh, this one's on this side and these one's on this side. But so if you end up doing this, you might want to also add something in the middle, like a little piece of cardboard, an extra piece of cardboard besides the sides going down the middle, just as like an extra support for the shelves. But that is the DIY stand. It's pretty simple to make. It's completely disposable. I just left this there when I left that night so that everyone who was still there after me would still have cupcakes to eat. If you want to learn how to make the cute little pop-up card that I stuck in front of that display as well, you can learn that in the part 1 video of this little project.